Season 1, Episode 8 of The Twilight Zone, Time Enough at Last. Another one written by Rod Serling. The co-writing credit of Lynn Venable. And our main character is a lovable goof by the name of Henry Bemis, who works at a bank, but his real passion is reading. He doesn't want to become a writer. He just loves reading books, but he's with an overbearing wife who won't allow him to read books. In fact, we see in a scene right after he gets home from work, he just wants to read a book, and his wife won't let him. She's making him go to all these parties that he doesn't want to go to the point where he actually has to sneak books into these parties, and even then she'll catch him, checking his clothing to make sure he doesn't have some hidden pulp novel, acting like she just caught him with a penthouse. And you really do feel sorry for the guy. He's not the hardest worker. His boss at the bank tells him that he doesn't really put in enough effort and he takes too many breaks. On these breaks, of course, he reads. But come on, he's not trying to harm anyone. He just wants to read some Shakespeare. Henry is perfectly portrayed by Burgess Meredith, who most people will recognize as the boxing instructor Mickey in Rocky 1, 2, and 3. He was also in Clash of the Titans and lived to the ripe old age of 89. So we're halfway through this episode and we don't really know where it's going. We just know he's trying to read and everyone is not allowing him to do this. And then Rod Serling throws a jump scare at us. Henry Bemis sneaks into the vault of the bank and closes the door just to do a bit of light reading on his break. And just as he's turning the pages of the newspaper, we see an article about a nuclear weapon. And just as soon as he reads that article, a bomb goes off, and this comes out of nowhere. I actually jumped out of my seat a little bit. Once you see this article, you go, oh, this might turn into a post-apocalyptic episode, and that's exactly what happens. And the bomb goes off, the room shakes, Henry Bemis is very scared. And the rest of the episode is him walking across this post-apocalyptic landscape, where the H-bomb has destroyed absolutely everything. And when he walks out into this post-apocalyptic world, it's obviously filmed on a set, but it looks really good. He spends a lot of time walking around, trying to get in a car that isn't able to start up. He visits his old house, which is completely blown apart. We're assuming his wife has died. Now, the one unrealistic part about this is, well, he's just walking around in this nuclear fallout, which is not a safe thing to do. The radiation would get to him. In fact, there's a funny scene where, since everything is decimated, he sleeps on this couch that is left outside and has a good night's sleep. The radiation would have killed him at this point, but okay, we'll suspend some belief. We don't know why this nuclear weapon was deployed, and it looks like there's no one around to clean up from this devastation, and we never run into another character. So as Rod Serling is so good at doing, it's another character that's alone on a desolate island, spaceship, or in this case, a post-apocalyptic ashes of the town that he was living in. And I think the title of this episode gives away the ending. I had seen this episode before, but I remember when I first saw it, I could still predict the ending. And I will ruin it. You could probably guess where this is going. I think if they called it something a little different, it wouldn't give away exactly where this is going. He's wandering around. He's bored. There's even a moving scene where he puts a gun to his head about to commit suicide. And then what does he see? He sees a public library in the distance. This is predictable, but it's still a nice ending with a bit of a grim twist. I would think his first instinct would be to read, since he talks about how he always wanted time to do that. But I guess it was hard to find books in this post-apocalyptic universe. So he stumbles upon this library that is where the inside is destroyed, but it's blown a lot of books out the door. And he's just overcome with tons and tons of books that are still intact, ready to be read. And he makes a collection of them for January, February, March, April, May. And then we get a grim and I think unneeded twist where just as he's about to read his book, his glasses break. But I'm going to look on the positive side of this episode. If he found a library, maybe he'll be able to find a glasses shop. Also, while it shows the lenses falling out of his glasses, he really just dropped them. So he could just grab some of those lenses, do a little bit of taping them together, and he'll be able to see at least enough to get by until he get some new glasses. He's got to be able to find some. So I'm going to look on the bright side of this, that he's not going to just be blind for the rest of his life. But I actually think it would have been nicer if they just ended it with him reading. Rod Serling's really sticking you in the gut of this guy, Henry Bemis, who didn't do anything wrong. It's not his fault this nuclear bomb was deployed. So I'm going to give Time Enough at Last an 8 out of 10. I think it's a really good episode. And is an example of an episode that keeps getting better and builds up to a climax that, while it's predictable, makes complete sense, is very nice. I don't necessarily like the twist of his glasses breaking, but I'll look on the bright side of that one. Either way, it's quite an edgy episode dealing with suicide, loneliness, and blindness. They didn't pass judgment on Henry wanting to get his reading done, and this isn't the only story that's going to be dealing with someone who really likes reading. So, some fun facts about this episode. Mr. Henry Bemis himself, Burgess Meredith. This was the episode that kickstarted his career. And it says out of the 92 episodes written by Rod Serling, this was his personal favorite, though I've heard him mention some other ones that he considers his favorite too, so we'll just say this is one of his favorites. Director John Bram was awarded a Directors Guild Award for his work on this episode, which has been given out every year since 1938. And the last person to receive it was Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer 2025. And I can see why, since the scenery in this episode looks absolutely excellent and holds up very well. And they didn't just stick to a one-room location and throw a few bricks on the ground. You really get to see the devastation of this town. And one of the 4 times Rod Serling uses a mid-episode narration. I think he does this because once the nuclear bomb goes off, Henry Bemis is just talking to himself and wandering through this landscape, so it becomes a little too desolate. And having some narration from Rod Serling himself does help move things along. Next up is episode 9 of season 1, Perchance to Dream. That might have been the inspiration for something like Nightmare on Elm Street, since this man doesn't want to go to sleep because he's afraid if he sleeps, he will have a heart attack. Also the name of a Monsters episode we covered in the previous series, Monsters. And check out our playlist to see every single episode of Monsters we covered. Fear Itself, Mystery Science Theater 3000, Tales from the Dark Side, Cowboy Bebop, Pet Shop of Horrors, and Are You Afraid of the Dark? Thanks a lot.